Hey, what's going on, guys? So I've had a couple requests to do a video on Google's reCAPTCHA version 2. So what we're going to do here is we're going to implement a client-server implementation of reCAPTCHA. Okay, we're going to use Node.js for our server. And we're just going to have a form on the front end that enables the reCAPTCHA. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, it's this, where is it? Right here, this I'm not a robot thing. And sometimes you'll have the boxes where you have to choose like the street signs and stuff. So I'm going to show you how to implement that. All right, now the actual form isn't going to do anything beyond that. If you want to take what you learn in this video and apply it to my Node mailer video where we create a contact form, you can do that. But I did want to just keep this separate from that. So first thing you're going to want to do is go to google.com/reCAPTCHA and just click on this this button right here. Okay, you're going to need a site key and a server key, so that's what we're signing up for right here. So let's give this a label. I'm just going to call this localhost. We're going to choose reCAPTCHA version 2, and for domains, I'm just going to put in localhost. Okay, if you're using this on a production server, you want to make sure you put your domain name in there, or it won't work. So let's click register, and now you'll see we get a site key and we get a secret key, and we have some instructions down here. Now before we get to the form and the client side, we're going to go ahead and create our server. So let's go ahead and minimize that, and I'm in my Visual Studio Code here. I have an empty folder called reCAPTCHA node, and we'll just clear this out, and we're going to go ahead and run npm init. Make sure you have Node.js installed. Alright, so let's go ahead and go through this. Name, that's fine. Version, we don't need a description. The entry point, I'm going to call server.js, and we'll just go through the rest. Alright, so now we have our package.json file. Now there's a few modules that we're going to need to install. So let's say npm install -- save. We're going to install Express to handle routes. We're going to install something called request because we need to, once we get the CAPTCHA access token or whatever it is, the big string that it gives you, we need to then send that to Google's verify URL. Okay, and then we'll get the response back. So we're using request for that. We also need body parsers so that we can get the form data. All right, make sure you do -- save. What happened? I didn't want that slash there. All right, so let's run that. So now that we have that set up, let's go ahead and create our server.js file, server.js, and we're going to bring in Express. So we're going to say require Express. I may do a PHP version on this too. Let's do body parser. All right, let's bring in request. All right, and I apologize if you hear any banging upstairs. It is the weekend, so my family's home, and they're pretty freaking loud. So now we need to initialize Express. So we're going to say const app equals Express. And in order to use body parser, we need to add 2 lines of middleware. So we're going to say app.use, and let's pass in here body parser dot URL encoded. If you use VS Code, you'll get these little pop-ups. And we're going to put in here extended, extended. Actually, this needs to be an object. So we need our curly braces and then extended. And we're going to set that to false. And then we need one more line, which will be app.use body parser.json. Okay, so that's our body parser middleware. Now we're going to create a route that's going to load our client index file, our index.html file. So we'll say app.get, and it's going to be the index route. Okay, you can put a callback here. I'm going to use an arrow function. I'm going to use ES6. And here we need a request and response, and then all we're going to do here is load an index.html file. So we can say res.sendFile, and we want the current directory, so we'll say _dir name, and then we just want to concatenate index.html. All right, so now when we go to our local host, it should load the HTML file. All right, so now let's say app.listen. We want to listen on a port. We'll say 3000. And then I'm just going to put an arrow function as a second parameter, and we'll say console.log, and we'll just say server started on port 3000. All right, so now we should be able to run node server since we named it server.js, and it started up. All right, so now let's go ahead and snap this over here, and we'll go to HTTP. I'm just gonna localhost 3000. What's this? No such file directory. What did I do here? Res.send file. Dir name. Oh, I didn't create the index.html. So let's go ahead and do that. And we'll just put some basic HTML tags in here using Emmet. And let's say subscribe form, and we'll just say hello. Let's save. Now we're gonna have to restart the server and reload, and we get our index.html file. All right, so I'm gonna use NodeMon, which is a module that will watch our application so that we don't have to keep restarting it. So I usually use it globally. So if you want to do that, you can say npm install -g NodeMon. All right, and then instead of running your Node server, we can just run NodeMon, and we won't have to keep restarting it. All right, so that's our HTML file. Now, before we do the client form and all that stuff, we're going to finish the server. So we're going to want to make a post request, and we're going to submit the form using the fetch API. All right, now you can use jQuery, or you can use just Ajax, XHR, or Axios, or anything like that. We're going to use the fetch API to actually make the request to the server. But we're going to make a request to /subscribe. So let's go ahead and add a route for that. So this is going to be a post request we're going to make, and it's going to be to /subscribe. We'll say it's like an email subscribe form. All right, so let's put our arrow function, and this will take in request and response. And what we're going to do is we're going to check to see if the CAPTCHA is that, if it's undefined, or if it's just an empty string, or if it's null. Okay, if it's any of those things, we want to return a success false error. Okay, basically we're just returning JSON objects. So let's say if, and I'm going to put this on multiple lines because we're going to check for a few things. We're going to say if request.body.captcha is equal to undefined, or request.body.captcha is equal to nothing, or request.body.captcha is equal to null, then what do we want to do? We want to return res.json, and we're going to pass in an object, and you can return whatever you want. We're going to return success, which is going to be false. Okay, and we'll also send a message with that. So we'll say MSG, and then our message will just say please select CAPTCHA. Okay, so that takes care of that if it's not checked. Then what we need to do is we need to define our secret key. So under the if statement here, we'll put our secret key. Let's create a variable. We'll call it secret key, and we're going to grab this from here. Okay, so right here, make sure it's the secret key, not the site key. The site key goes on the client. So we'll paste that in. I'm just going to close this up. All right, so now we have that, and we're also going to need the Google's the verify URL that we need to make the request to. So let's create a variable here called verify URL. All right, now this I'm going to set to a template string, so I'm going to use backticks instead of single quotes, and this is going to be HTTPS, and it's going to be google.com/reCAPTCHA/API/site verify, and then we're going to put on some parameters. So we want a question mark, and we're going to say secret equals, and then we're going to put in a variable here. So we want to use this, this is ES6 syntax. We're using a money sign and then the curly braces. And then this is where we're going to put our secret key that we have right here. All right, so we're going to pop that in there. So we have our secret key. Then we want another parameter, so we're going to put an ampersand, and this is going to be the response. We're going to set this to a variable, and it's going to be this. It's going to be the value of the captcha. So it's going to be request.body.captcha. All right, and then we're going to add one more parameter, so another ampersand, and we're going to say remote IP equals, and we can get this. Let's use a variable. We can get this with request.connection.remote address. All right, so that's our verify URL string. Now what we want to do, now that we've constructed that, is we want to make our request to it. So we'll say make request to verify URL. And we're going to do that using that request module that we installed. So we're going to say request. We're going to pass in our verify URL, and then that's going to give us back. Let's put an arrow function here. Get rid of that. So that's going to give us back error, response, and body. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take that body that it gives us, and we're going to just parse it as JSON. We're going to say JSON.parse, and then pass in body. All right, so now what we want to do is check this body. So we're going to do an if statement. This will be if not successful. All right, so if not successful, then we're going to basically return an object that says success false, just like we did up here with a message. So we'll say if body dot success is not equal to undefined and not body success. All right, so if this is true, then it's not a successful CAPTCHA. So we want to return, actually we'll just copy what we did up here. Okay, so we'll paste that in, and we'll paste the message here, and we'll say failed CAPTCHA verification. Okay, and then we're going to go under that if statement, and that means if that didn't run, then we're successful. So we'll say if success, or if successful, then we want to also return an object, but we're going to say success true, and then we'll set a message, and we'll say CAPTCHA passed. Okay, and that's it. That should do it for our server. So let's save that. Now there may be some errors here. I don't know. We'll know when we actually do the testing. So now we're going to go to our index.html, and I'm going to use Bootstrap. So let's go ahead and go to get Bootstrap just to make this form look a little better. We'll grab the CDN right here and just paste that in. All right, now we're also going to need, if we go back to our reCAPTCHA settings here, I think I have to make this bigger. So we're going to need this script tag right here, which points to google.com reCAPTCHA API.js. That needs to go in the head, so I'm going to put that right here. And then this right here is the actual reCAPTCHA. Okay, that's the actual checkbox thing. We're gonna put that in a second, but what I want to do is just paste in a form. I don't want to waste time typing in a form. You guys, should know what a form is. So let's go ahead and paste this in, And basically we just have a container. We're using Bootstrap. We have a form. It has an ID of subscribed form. And then we have some fields, just a name and an email. What the hell is that dash doing there? But each field has a name and an ID, okay? And then we just have our submit. So let's save that. Let's reload. And there's our form. Now to add the CAPTCHA, what we want to do is go back to here, and we want to grab this. Okay, we're going to put this right above the input, the submit button. We're actually going to put it in a form group div just to add that spacing. Okay, your site key will obviously be different. And let's save it. Let's go back, and there it is. All right, so we need to submit this form using Ajax, or we're going to use the fetch API. So let's go down to the bottom here and put in some script tags. Okay, and we're going to have to add an event listener for this form submission. So, and you could use jQuery if you want, but I'm going to use vanilla JavaScript. I've been trying to stay away from jQuery, like most developers. Let me just fix this real quick, just format that up. All right, so in here, we're going to say document.getElementById. The form has an ID of, what was it? Subscribe form. And we're going to say .add event listener. And we want to listen for a submit event. And then we're going to call a function called submit form. All right, so let's go ahead and create that function, submit form. And since it's a submit event, we need to pass in an event object, and we need to say e.prevent default. And that'll prevent the actual submission to a file. All right, so let's just test this out real quick. We'll say console log 123. Let's open up our client-side console, and let's reload this and submit, and we get 123. Okay, so let's go ahead and clear this out. And what we want to do is catch the form fields. We want the name, the email, and the CAPTCHA. So we're going to say const name equals document dot, let's use query selector. Okay, and it has an ID of name, and we want the value. All right, now I'm just going to copy this, and we want the email. So that'll be the ID of email, and then we want the CAPTCHA. Now this, we're actually going to be using an ID of g-reCAPTCHA-response. Okay, and notice that that's not actually included in the div, but this is just part of the API, so this is what you need to use. That actually got me stuck for a while trying to figure that out. All right, so now that we have these fields, we want to use fetch. So let's say fetch, and in here we want the route that we want to post to, which is going to be /subscribe on our server. All right, so we're also going to pass in an object, and we want to specify that this is going to be a post request. Okay, it's going to be a post request, and then we want headers. That's going to be an object, and we just want to specify headers accept, and we're going to set this to application/JSON, and also we'll put a comma, and then we'll say text/plain, another comma, and we'll say */*. All right, and then after that quote, single quote, we're going to put a comma, and then we want to put the content type. Whoops, it should be single quotes or double quotes, and we'll say content dash type, and we want to set this to application/JSON. All right, so that's the headers, and then we just want to put the body. This is what's going to include the actual fields. We're going to say body, and I'm going to run this through JSON.stringify. No, we don't want that. And then we're going to pass in an object with the name, which will equal the name, the email, which will have the email, and the CAPTCHA, which will have the CAPTCHA. All right, and all these variables are coming from these right here. So we're just sending this stuff in the body with the request. All right, so the way that fetch works is it gives us a promise. So we're going to say dot, let's go on the next line. We're going to say dot then, and we have to take the response. We have to take the response. So I'm going to put another set of parentheses and say res. And then we're going to set that to res.json, like that. And then we need to do another dot then. I know it's a little weird, but that's what we need to do. And in here, we're going to get the actual data. So we'll put in parentheses data. We'll use an arrow function. And then you're going to do whatever you want with the data. So I just want to log it. And that should do it. So let's save this. All right, let's go ahead and let's just refresh this whole page. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to put whatever in here and then not check it. Let's click submit. So we get back our response, which is success false. Message, please select CAPTCHA. All right, and you can do whatever you want with this. If you want to, one thing you may want to do is maybe do an alert and say, let's see, we could say data. Yeah, we'll say data dot message or data dot msg. All right, so if we go ahead and we submit, and say please select CAPTCHA. Now that's not a very elegant way of doing it. You may want to put in a div and have a nice little alert up here, but you know, I'm not going to get into that. So let's go ahead and try to actually submit it. Put in whatever, doesn't matter. We'll check that off. All right, now sometimes it doesn't show these boxes. I think the reason it's doing it for me is because during development I've submitted it so many times, because the first few times that I did it, it didn't actually show these boxes. So I'm not exactly sure how that works, but we're gonna go ahead and just do this. Click next. Let's see, it wants the vehicles. Looks like that's a vehicle. I don't know, is there vehicles up there? Some of these are pretty tough. Let's verify. Okay, so we get the little check here, and let's submit. And we get failed CAPTCHA verification. All right, so that actually shouldn't have happened. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go where we make this request and we get the body back. We're gonna console log the body and see what that gives us. So let's go ahead and reload this. And we'll just check this off. Vehicles, verify, submit. All right, so failed CAPTCHA. All right, so over here, we're getting missing input response. Missing input response. So let's see, let's actually search for that. So search for missing input response and verifying the user response. This page explains. Okay, response. So we sent the secret. So if we look at the verify URL, we have the secret, response, and oh, I spelt response wrong. There's no S. That should be it. That makes perfect sense. It's not getting the CAPTCHA to the verify URL. All right, so hopefully that fixes it. So let's go ahead and reload that. Let's try it again. So street signs. Whoops. Let's click next. God, she's loud up there. Street signs. So I guess we want those. Verify, submit. There we go. CAPTCHA passed. All right, cool. So I mean, you can decide what you want to do when it passes. You know, we're just alerting it. And of course, if you're doing something on the server side, I mean, you know, if it's successful, then you could move on to, you know, send the email. I mean, that's what if you're going to implement this with the node mailer tutorial I did, you're going to say if it's successful, then send the email, use node mailer. Or if you're entering something into a database, you want to then do that here. Anything that you want when it's successful. All right, so hopefully this gives you guys a little bit of insight on how to use this on the client and the server side. And that's it. Thanks for watching.